Hello and welcome to NetSuite 2026.1 release webinar. My name is Roshni. I am your host and one of your account managers based in Oakland. Along with me, I have Russell, our senior solution strategist, who will be going through the latest updates on the 2026.1 release. Just a heads up that we are recording today's session and this will reach via email to you within a week's time. We will be posting the same webinar on the website as well. For now, the audio and video are disabled by default, but if you have any questions, please submit via Q&A. Before I hand over to Russell, just a bit about Fusion 5. Along with NetSuite, we do a range of other services at Fusion 5. As you can see the list on your screen right now, and we encourage you to check those out on our website. Our 360-degree transformation capabilities covers most of these areas, your business, that we can support you with. We become your one-stop shop for most of your IT needs. Last year, we had some major acquisitions like Pocket Square, a long-standing Shopify partner, and Cordia Managed IT. This has strengthened our in-house capability, and we are happy to assist you. Moving on, a gentle reminder to all the customers who are looking at the NetSuite modules like NetSuite Analytics Warehouse, Field Service Management, Planning and Budgeting, that we are offering free service credits with this purchase that you can use towards any professional services or NetSuite enhancements delivered by Fusion 5. Please get in touch with your account manager or service delivery manager to get more information on this. Please note that this offer is just valid till 30th of April. That's the end of this month. So if you're considering these modules, this is a good time. From here, I'd like to hand over this to our senior solution strategist, Russell Bailey.
Thank you very much, Roshni. And hello and welcome to everyone listening to this recording. So the intent of this update today is to provide awareness of changes in the new release. So if you need to, you can explore to get more detailed information. It's an overview of changes, not a detailed description of what it's changing. So I want to talk through the new release approach, potential impacts you should be aware of or to make users aware of, then run through some of the AI related changes. There's quite a lot in that space. Provide updates on new capability, which may be useful to a lot of you before focusing on the wholesale distribution and manufacturing areas. So I appreciate some of you will have already been upgraded. We'll be working to ensure the session is held earlier in future. So apologies for this being a bit later than we would have liked this time. So a very quick overview of what you need to do for each new release. So new release portlet, make sure you have the new release portlet on your dashboard in NetSuite. This is where you can access the new release notes, update guidelines and check your upgrade date. There is also an option in NetSuite to change your upgrade date within an upgrade window if you need to do so. So that's good to be aware of. Now, NetSuite primary contacts, NetSuite hold two key emails for you against your account. The main email where they send invoices. They can also tag a contact for your business as a primary contact. You need to make sure these email addresses are up to date. That can be checked through your account manager if you need to, but they sometimes receive important updates about your upgrade. NetSuite authorized contacts. So I'll show you in a second where you can update these. There's been a few changes there, but they often receive updates about new release and how it will impact your particular account. So it's important those updates are up to date, those contacts are up to date rather. Bundle messages, I'll also show you in a sec quickly. There is a messages setting against managed bundles, which is sometimes used by the owner of that bundle to provide update notifications. And then consider third parties. So do you have third parties like Celigo or SBS? You need to make sure that they have up-to-date contacts for you because they also send out details of how an upgrade changes their product. So NetSuite authorized contacts, NetSuite have made a change to what used to be known as the support center. It's now called NetSuite 360. So against your employee record, you can either add the NetSuite 360 role or a NetSuite 360 plus financials. And this will allow you access to the new support dashboard introduced in 26.1. So you click on the support header in NetSuite, that transfers you into the support center. You'll see the link shown on the left-hand side there. Click on that to open up the dashboard. So on the right-hand side, you can see that dashboard, and I've highlighted in yellow the option to update your authorized contacts. As I said, they will receive important emails. However, there is also a new action items and notifications view on that dashboard, just to the left of that highlighted yellow option. And this is where anyone with a relevant role can view those update emails about a new release. So it's really useful that it isn't restricted. Visibility isn't just restricted to those 2 authorized contacts. So that's a good place to have a look. If you have the NetSuite 360 Plus financials role, there's also some views in here where you can see invoices and payment information with NetSuite. So I recommend you have a look at that if that's useful to you. Bundle messages, you'll be able to refer back to this slide afterwards to go through a bit of the detail, but I'm just showing you on that slide where that messages option is, which you need to update from managed bundles. And the recommended setting is all bundle admins to make sure you receive those updates. And then some new release guidelines. So I'll only briefly cover this at quite a high level because a lot of you will have been through this process before. So in short, prepare, put in place for you a plan for your new release, ensure there is clear ownership, and ensure you're going to receive those updates that I've just referred to. Review the release notes and other notifications, understand impacts, and then execute relevant regression testing, leverage new capability where it makes sense to do so. So if you want help for any new release, you can raise a support ticket with Fusion 5 for a new release walkthrough. We'll get an expert to run through the release notes with you to help understand impacts, opportunities, what you may need to test, and how it's going to impact your account. So that will be a more targeted and in more detail than I'll be able to provide today. Potential impacts. So in your release updates, there are usually a group of changes which can impact you on upgrade. There's some more cosmetic or usability type changes, and then changes which are essentially opt-in, or you need to enable a feature to be able to use them. So I'm going to start with some of those key potential impacts which may impact you on upgrade. So the first one is around journals. So this change does not impact the creation of journals. It impacts the edit of existing journal lines via CSV import or integration only. So if you edit existing journal lines, there is a new line key reference which needs to be used. Otherwise, you may add lines to your journal instead of editing them. So please review the detail around that change if it may impact you. And next one, parent record filtering for address records. So NetSuite have changed how integrations and scripts retrieve addresses for an entity like a customer. So previously, it seems as though a script or integration could retrieve all addresses in NetSuite, not just those for the relevant entity like a customer. And now you will only see those addresses linked to the parent. So to me, this seems like a bit of an issue fix. I wouldn't have thought it's going to impact anyone, but if you do have any integrations around addresses, you might want to double check that. Multiple sessions per user. So this was a cool new feature which came out in the last new release. So it's now possible to have multiple active sessions for one user. So an example of when that might be beneficial is for a user who needs to log into a desktop version of NetSuite and a mobile device at the same time. That's usually pretty handy for NetSuite WMS as an example. So a couple of important changes are being made. In the enable features page in NetSuite, I believe this new multiple sessions per user option is going to be disabled by default when you upgrade. And this capability is now only going to work if all roles for the relevant user are two-factor authenticated roles. So if multiple sessions are useful to you, make sure you enable this feature on upgrade, and you're going to have to make sure the roles for the relevant users are two-factor authenticated so that they can use that capability. NetSuite.com is no longer available. That's been signaled for a long time, so I won't dwell on that. Everyone should be on NetSuite2.com, so that's actually come into force now. And then if you're using NetSuite supply planning, and in particular the order items screen to create purchase orders in NetSuite, this next change will impact you. So POs will be created using the standard NetSuite PO form, not the preferred PO form. Any users using the order items screen need to have access to that standard NetSuite PO form. You also need to consider if you've got customizations which run depending on the form used to create a purchase order, because you may need to review them or regression test them on upgrade. So make sure relevant users have access to the right form and consider if you need to do some regression testing. Right, the next two changes may impact integrations, SQL queries, which can be run in custom scripts or through Suite Analytics Connect. So that's an ODBC connection. So the first is a currency context change, which appears to be a fault fix. Previously, for a GL account, there was a balance and a foreign balance field, but they return the same value. And that issue is now being fixed. They will show the correct numbers. So I guess there's a chance you've included a foreign currency conversion in your SQL query or your integration. And so when you upgrade, that may break and show the wrong value. So check if you're referencing those fields. And the second one is around sublist IDs. So this is also in that integration and SQL query space, and we have had a user impacted by this. So if you're retrieving sublist information like the vendor sublist for an item, there's been a name change from assembly item vendor to assembly item vendor. Now, if you don't update that sublist ID name in your queries, then they will stop working. So there is a Suite Answers article. I've got the number on the slide there, so you can chuck that in Suite Answers, bring up the details of all those sublist ID changes. And I recommend if you're using integrations with ODBC that you check through those sublists and make sure you're using the right IDs. Fusion 5, we have checked through our scripts we hold offline, but that doesn't cover everything. If you want help checking that in your account, get in touch. And then lastly, SOAP integrations. So quite a few key things around SOAP. So SOAP versions previously changed each upgrade. The last 3 years were supported and the last 7 years available. That is no longer going to be the case. So currently 23.2, the SOAP version of 23.2 onwards is supported and 19.2 onwards is available. However, from early 2027, NetSuite have indicated they will only support version 25.2 onwards. So there's less support available. They're also going to stop you being able to create new token-based authenticated integrations in SOAP from early 2027. Get my numbers wrong. 2027. You would have to use OAuth 2 for new SOAP integrations. And then from the second half of 2028, SOAP will no longer be available in NetSuite. REST must be used. So if you've got SOAP integrations, you need to start thinking through and planning how you're going to move them onto REST before the second half of 2028. So if you ever have partners running SOAP integrations in your NetSuite account, contact them to understand their plans. Fusion 5 had a dedicated integration team and can help you with that transition. So get in touch if you want to talk through how we can help you. So I've now got a couple of slides on 26.1 updates, which will change existing behavior in NetSuite. So these are points you should make relevant users aware of. So journal posting period. You can now amend the posting period of a journal when it is in pending approval status. Previously, you had to approve it first. So that's a nice little change to make life easier. And then role restrictions. So this is an admin related change here. But roles in NetSuite can be configured so they restrict access based on classifications like department against the employee record. So previously, if a role was set to restrict access to your own subordinates and blank only, which is setting which is available, you couldn't see account balances for GL accounts with a blank department, and now you can. A little bit complicated to understand, but if you have roles which are restricted based on classifications like department, I suggest you read through the new release notes to get a better understanding of that change. Intercompany, a few usability changes here. So starting with the elimination of journal entry process. So you can now view source transactions on all elimination journal entries for all account types. So that's going to be really useful to help audit those journal entries. In the analytics tool within NetSuite, there's where you create data sets and workbooks. There is a new intercompany elimination data set. So the report in that workbook may be useful to you. So I recommend having a look. And then as part of the month end, you run a process in NetSuite to create elimination journal entries. That process takes some time. And previously you didn't have much visibility of how far through the process the update was. Now you'll get better visibility of that progress. And that progress update will detail whether existing elimination journals are being deleted or being created. So a bit more visibility there. And lastly, for intercompany, for cross-charged journals, if you're using them, previously you had to contact NetSuite support if you wanted to unlink them, if they've been linked in error. But you can now do that in the UI. You don't have to contact NetSuite support. So if that's ever relevant to you, I recommend reading the instructions in the release notes and making sure relevant users know how to do that. Bank data transaction matching. So there's some new AI capability here, which is going to be turned on by default when you upgrade. So users will see a new option called enriched matching. So I recommend ensuring they know what this does. So when you're matching bank data to transaction, standard NetSuite system rules run. You might have also created some custom rules to try and auto match as much as possible. After the custom rules are run, if you select the Run Enrich Matching button, NetSuite will use AI to review unmatched transactions to see what else can be matched. It's going to use the memo details to try and improve the matching process. So I recommend reviewing that option, seeing how useful it is to you. It may speed up the process. And within the bank reconciliation process, there are some formatting changes. So memos are now visible on the imported bank statements and NetSuite transactions, which is really useful and was a bit of a gap before. You can also see context and status information for transactions. So that's things like, was that transaction created in the UI or via an integration or imported? So some useful new visibility there. And then lastly, if you're using reclassification journals or in the revenue recognition capability, you no longer need to manually approve them. They will be auto approved. So moving on to manufacturing. So if you're using whip and routing, this should make sense to you, but simultaneous start of multiple operations used to include a minimal lag, and now they don't, so they can start at the same time. So more detail on the release notes, if that's relevant to you, recommend having a look. And if you're using work orders but not using whip and routing, it is now possible to reopen closed work orders. So there's a new option available in the actions menu at the top of a work order on the header there when you're viewing a work order, or you can edit the work order and change status. So that previously wasn't possible. You might have been deleting transactions instead. So that will be a better option for you. And from a visibility perspective on a work order, there used to be a build subtab that has been renamed related records. So it aligns with other NetSuite transactions, and that will show you any build or unbuild transactions for that work order in the same place. It's a bit more user friendly. Talking about unbuilding, if you do unbuild work orders, there is a new restriction that prevents you from unbuilding more than was built. So there is some nuance in this update. So if you're unbuilding in NetSuite on a regular basis, please read the full update of what is changing. There's some important changes for you to be aware of there. And then lastly, in manufacturing, outsourced manufacturing feature, an efficiency improvement here. So in 26.1, if you amend the item receipt quantity or location, the corresponding assembly build and inventory transfer will automatically update. So previously you had to manually update them, so another time saver. Up on the right hand side, so projects, there's a new add edit tasks in bulk button. So it's more easier to add and edit tasks against a project in bulk, which is fantastic. Previously, you had to open up each individual task. So I recommend you let users know about that change. It might save some time. And it is now also possible to recalculate revenue recognition for anything related to a project from the project record itself. So if you're going to use that capability, I recommend reading through the detail of the update before doing so and testing in Sandbox before using in prod to make sure you understand how that works. There's a change around integrations. So they're going to be limited to a maximum of 5 integration certificates per integration. This is certificates which you might have generated, not access tokens, which is something different. If you have integrations and you're using OAuth2, I recommend checking you don't have any integrations which are over that limit because they may stop working. And then on the bottom right there, scheduled workflows. So for the administrators in NetSuite, if you've got scheduled workflows, which might be sending out invoice or statement emails, there is a new scheduled log screen, which is shown on the bottom right of the slide there. So previously you had no visibility of whether the scheduled workflow had run, whether it was successful, failures, etc. That new scheduled log view is available on the workflow itself. So you view the workflow, you see that tab and you can open it up. Unfortunately, that information isn't available in Safe Search, but I would hope that NetSuite add that in future because then you can add visibility to your dashboard. But for the moment, you have to check each individual workflow. So that's it for the user guidance changes. I'm going to move on to changes in the AI space. So NetSuite Next. So at SuiteWorld last year, NetSuite announced that NetSuite Next is going to be made available in the US later this year and other regions after that. So we don't know the exact timing yet, but this is a really significant change to how NetSuite will be used. And what I recommend is if you go onto YouTube, if you search for NetSuite and find the NetSuite logo and click on that, it opens up the NetSuite site on YouTube. And within that NetSuite site, search for NetSuite Next. There are quite a few recordings which show you this capability in more detail than I'll be able to cover off today. So I strongly recommend you have a look to understand what is coming. On the slide is a small example. It might be a bit blurry, sorry for that. I've had to lift it from one of those recordings. But NetSuite is on the left. And by switching a toggle in the top right, you'll be able to turn NetSuite Next on and off when this feature is available. And in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, there is a new Ask Oracle chat box. So you can type a natural language query, NetSuite AI processing will then provide you with responses. So for example, show me open purchase orders for this vendor. It's going to be a really powerful tool to help you interact with NetSuite more easily. And there will also be a what they call a fully immersive AI view, where you don't even look at NetSuite, you interact with NetSuite data using that AI chat capability, full screen. So that looks pretty exciting as well. Something else in NetSuite Next is something called Suite Agents. So these can be thought of as an AI-enabled workflow. That's how I think of them. So for example, on a scheduled basis, a Suite agent could check for any purchase order expected receipt dates which are in the past, automatically send an email to the relevant vendors asking for an update. When the email response is received back from the vendor, read that response and either propose or make a change to the PO in NetSuite automatically. So these agents will be able to work automatically, or they can propose changes for a user to review. Now, a lot of what I just said in that example is possible in workflow today, but the AI bit in this example is being able to read that vendor response, interpret it, and then propose a change. And I believe you'll be able to create these Suite agents using natural language inputs as well, which make them a bit user-friendly to create. There will also be a Suite Flow Assistant. This will allow workflows to be created from natural language inputs. So this sounds incredibly useful. And whilst I haven't used this yet, there are a few watch points around this new AI capability. So in my experience with AI tools today, they try to do what you ask them to. It isn't a conversation, a refinement of requirements, or a proposal of different approaches before trying to build. They just build. So that may change, but that's the case today. So for example, if you ask the Suite Flow Assistant to create a workflow when there is a standard approach or standard feature available, will it tell you? If you ask it to default a field when a user enters something on a transaction, will it think about whether that workflow needs to run for an integration as well, in which case it would have to be built differently. So I think being able to build use these AI tools to configure NetSuite is awesome. But from what I've seen to date, there are gaps in the AI's capability to suggest the right approach. It's relying on the prompts and input you provide to those tools. And so you have to be very careful around how you use them. The prompts and input, provide it with the context to before it starts building. So Suite Developer Assistant is going to be something similar for the script development. We'll be getting across to that when it's available. And as part of NetSuite have said they expect performance to significantly improve. They've redesigned how the UI works to deliver performance benefits. So I'm personally going to be skeptical about that claim, sad to say, until I see it in action, but hopefully that's true. So in summary, there's a lot of AI capability coming, and this is going to significantly transform how you interact and use NetSuite. But that AI capability, in particular, the Ask Oracle capability, relies in large part on your prompts and the following to provide context for its responses. So it will look at your role permissions. What do you have access to? It looks at the forms that you have access to. What fields are shown on those forms, reports and searches that you have access to. So I strongly suspect that to get more useful or accurate responses out of Ask Oracle, it's going to be really important to have clean roles and permissions, fields only shown on forms if they're used, roles only have access to reports and searches which are accurate and signed off for the use in your business, and that you don't have data gaps in your data. So Fusion 5 can help you ensure you're ready for this capability which is coming, and we're looking to develop some new AI tools and services that we can provide you to help you with that tidy up. NetSuite AI Connector and MCP. So this became available in the last release, but I want to provide a quick recap and a bit of an update. So the NetSuite database has been MCP enabled. MCP is Model Context Protocol. This allows AI agents to interact with your NetSuite data. So you install a free Suite app in NetSuite. It's recommended you configure a dedicated role for the connector to control permissions. You can then use AI chat capability to query your NetSuite data using ChatGPT or Claude. Whilst the NetSuite AI Connector Suite app is free, you will need a paid license for ChatGPT and Claude, which the connector supports out of the box and are easy to connect. Fusion 5 are also now able to connect NetSuite to Microsoft Copilot. So you'll need a Microsoft Studio license to be able to do that, but we can help you get that connection set up. So get in touch if you want to link NetSuite to Copilot. And the NetSuite AI connector is your option today. And while some of this may be replaced by NetSuite Next in future, so you'll be able to do it in NetSuite, the connector is still going to be the AI link between NetSuite data and the outside world. For example, if you want to analyze NetSuite data against internet data or information from other applications. In 26.1, a new Suite app is available called the NetSuite AI Service Companion to work with that connector. It's free to install, and it currently provides 100 suggested prompts for you to use in the AI tool. It also contains 2 roles for the AI connector to help get you going, which is a lot easier than creating them from scratch. These prompts can be customized, so they can have role restrictions applied to them, and their development news is available using the AI connector today, but this is also likely to be a building block for NetSuite Next. So these prompts are templates. You would need to check the outputs are accurate before using them, but they're a great start point to get you going. And this capability is how you would control prompts, which prompts your NetSuite users can access. So I'm not expecting you to be able to read the 2 example prompts on the left, but I want to quickly show you what they produced in Claude in a few minutes. So the first prompt was for find sales orders to approve. I took that pre-built prompt from the Service Companion, chucked it into Claude, and you can see it's created a table of sales orders which I need to approve with links back to those sales orders in NetSuite. So you can then customize which columns that shows you. And the revenue analysis dashboard here was also pretty impressive. So the prompt asked Claude to create an interactive HTML dashboard. In a few minutes, it's created a multi-tabbed dashboard. There's an overview tab shown on the left. The second bit in the middle is the customer analysis. There's also a product and pricing analysis tab not shown on the slide. And on the right-hand side, I'm showing you the underlying transactions that you can filter to see which data is being used in the dashboard. So obviously this is a start point. You need to look at that information, understand what's useful to you, refine the prompt to make it more relevant to your business. But this approach will save you a lot of time in designing new reporting and analysis within NetSuite. So whilst NetSuite Next is coming, and will embed AI chat capability in NetSuite. The AI connector and service companion allow you to start exploring benefits right away. It can also help you to prepare for NetSuite Next by refining those prompts. So these tools may also be useful to you in cleansing your data. So Fusion 5 are offering a NetSuite AI discovery engagement, so we can help you get this up and running. So please reach out to your account manager or SCM at Fusion 5 if you want more detail on that. So also in the AI space, narrative insights. So in honesty, this might seem a little bit blunt compared to what I just talked through, but this new feature is available in 26.1. So you enable an AI preference, and the AI preferences are under your setup options in NetSuite. A generate insight button will appear on most reports and other records like a customer, vendor, and item. So there is a Suite Answers article, I've got the number on the slide there with more details of what is supported. When you click on that Generate Insight button, AI Logic reviews relevant data and provides you with a summary. So this might be particularly useful for, say, a customer or vendor or looking at some of your financial reports. There are also two new related Suite apps. So AI Exception Management, shown on this slide, and AI Close Management. I'm not going to go into heaps of details on these because it's an early release of new functionality. But I wanted to provide an overview of what this can do now and where I think it's heading. So AI exception management, if you enable the feature and have at least 18 months of history, an AI process will search through historical trends and try to identify exceptions in your current financial period. So this is looking for things like transactions with incorrect amounts, those outliers, incorrect accounts, or missing transactions based on what you usually create. So I'm imagining a scenario where you always create a certain accrual journal, but you haven't yet in the current month. That might be picked up automatically as an exception. The exceptions can be reviewed. If they're not exceptions, you update them to be ignored to help train future exception management. So there's a training process for this capability. AI Close Manager works with exception management. This feature is going to be developed to help you close your financial month end more efficiently and quicker than before. That was announced at SuiteWorld last year. They were trumpeting this. So NetSuite want you to be able to get rid of Excel checklists for month-end tasks. The AI Close Manager understands which features you use in NetSuite and then highlight tasks for your financial month end which are relevant to you. So for example, if you're using amortization schedules, do you have amortization schedules which haven't been posted? Do you have customer payments on hold? Things like that. Because this is an early release, I'm expecting these two Suite apps to have a few gaps today, but if you're an early adopter, you might want to explore this capability. There might be some benefits for you. Otherwise, I recommend keeping an eye on these tools. I expect them to improve in future releases. So that's it on the AI space. Moving on to some more general updates and new features which have become available. So to start, there's a couple around pricing. So there's something called price rules. So if you enable this feature, you'll be able to create price rules like the one on the right-hand side there of the slide. So a price rule allows you to specify a time period for which the price level of a customer or customers can be changed. So if you have a customer on a price level of wholesale, but for a period of time you want to change them onto a different price level called wholesale 10% discount, then a price rule would allow you to do this. So it's changing the price level which applies for a period of time. It is not changing the value of an item in the existing price level. So it isn't changing the wholesale price level from $10 to $9. It's changing the customer from getting the wholesale price to the wholesale 10% discount price. Hopefully that makes sense, and that capability will be useful to some of you. There is a new feature called cost plus pricing, which does what the name implies if it's enabled. So when you create or edit a price level in your accounting lists, you'll be able to select a pricing method of cost plus, and then select if you want cost to be based on average cost or a new field on the item called cost for pricing. You can then specify an uplift percentage to that underlying cost. So the pricing doesn't dynamically update on an ongoing basis. So on an item, there will be a new button, update cost plus pricing, which will trigger an update for that item only. And on the price level itself, there is a checkbox called update prices for items using this price level, bit of a mouthful. But if you check that and save the price level, it will re-trigger the price updates for all items within that price level. Personally, I recommend using that item field, cost for pricing, and importing that cost price. It gives you greater control over that base cost. If you do use the NetSuite average cost, I haven't tested the following yet, but I recommend you check this scenario. So if you haven't received an item before, the average cost is 0 or blank. If you don't have any stock of an item, that average cost might also be 0 or blank. And how will this new capability manage that scenario? And that's why I think that item field is going to give you more control. So cost plus seems to be a common approach to pricing, so it's great to see this capability. Moving on to the first of quite a few free Suite apps which have become available. So sales order renewal. So if you install this Suite app, in general preferences in NetSuite, you configure which sales order forms you want the renewal to be available for. And when you create a sales order, you can see the sales order renewal fields I've shown on the top right on the slide. So once the sales order is saved, if you're manually creating the renewal, there is a button you select, Create Renewal, to auto-create the new sales order. When a sales order is renewed, there is a link back to the original sales order. Now, this Suite app isn't compatible with contract renewals. It seems like it's a lighter solution. So, for example, you may have customers who have repeat purchases of a product. That might be a good use case for this capability. You might be using memorized transactions to control that today, or manually managing it. But with this sales order renewal Suite app, you have easier price management options than memorized transactions. For example, a price uplift percentage can be set. The renewal can use the original sales order price or the current customer price at the time of renewal. So that's quite handy. So if you do have repeat purchases and you're not using contract renewals, then I recommend having a look at that Suite app. Account matching report. So this is in the finance space and it helps with AR and AP account reconciliation. So some of you in the finance teams may have struggled to reconcile AR and AP for a month end, particularly if that month end is in the past. So creating reports to show which transactions were open at a prior month end is complicated to build. And I believe that's what this Suite app is addressing. So you install the Suite app, there's some roles and permissions to update. You can then view the report shown on the right-hand side, and there's some filters for which period you want to view it for. There is also a nice little export to Excel option, which is quite cool. And so as an example, this report would show you unapplied bills and credits for the February month end when filtered to an AP account. So this may help you with your reconciliation reporting that you're completing today. Another free app. So this is really cool and is the start of a product which I think might be aimed at replacing the Celigo Cloud Extend capability. So in short, you can sync emails and meeting invites from Outlook into NetSuite. So as an example, you receive an email, this NetSuite connector for Outlook looks at the email addresses on that Outlook email, and it suggests potential records in NetSuite you may want to link it to, like a customer, and then you can sync it across. So currently only manual syncing is available, but they've indicated that automated syncing will be available soon. So this app is installed from Microsoft Marketplace into Outlook. I had to do some work with our IT department around security to be able to use it, so you may have to as well. That wasn't too difficult, but once you install that app in Outlook, you click on the small icon I've shown in the middle of the slide, opens up a sidebar, you log into NetSuite, and then you can start syncing emails and calendar meetings. So there are some restrictions around which records are supported, but it's free to install and review so you can have a look. And NetSuite are going to continue developing this capability, so I suggest keeping an eye out for updates. So I'm going to briefly mention some other smaller changes. So sandbox refresh limits have been removed. So there used to be a set to a certain number during your license period. So it's pretty good that's unlimited. There's a payment date prediction feature, which looks quite interesting. So this can be enabled. It needs to run overnight for the first time, but add some fields onto customer invoices to try and predict based on historical payment trends when that invoice is likely to be paid. So this might be useful for cash flow reporting or as an input into your debt management process. So that might be worth a look. There's a few new records which are going to be supported by CSV import, which is cool, filling out some gaps. In the revenue recognition space, I haven't got the details here, but there's some changes to the filters and criteria controls. They've been expanded. So if you use revenue recognition, you may want to run through the detail of that. And then on the right-hand side, I've mentioned a couple here around the integrations. So for those of you building integrations, there is a REST attach and detach for REST request for files. So that's going to be really handy. And there's another one, a REST batch operations. So you can do things in bulk. So we're using different approaches for those two. Having those out of the box is going to make that a bit easier. So moving on to wholesale distribution and manufacturing, I'm not going to cover heaps in this area, but probably the biggest new feature in this space is a process to manage consigned inventory that you hold on site. So it's vendor consignment stock. So if you enable the feature, you can track consigned stock by using the inventory status capability. So inventory status is a sub-status for your inventory, like good stock, damaged stock, etc. There'll be a new consigned option for that inventory status. So if you have vendor consignment stock, I recommend having a look at this feature, but definitely look at it in Sandbox first to see if it's going to work for you. Give us a shout if you need some help to get it up and running. Another call out on here, I'm just going to talk about the transfer order change for standard costs. So on a transfer order, there's a use item cost as transfer cost option. That didn't used to work for standard cost items. In 26.1, it will. So that's awesome news. Some of you will have custom scripts doing that for you. So you probably want to look at removing the custom script and using the standard capability. Obviously, test that in Sandbox first. And then finally, for those of you using NetSuite WMS, there's quite a few changes here. I'm not going to run through all of them, just a couple of call outs. So setting landed cost during receiving. So on the WMS device, you'll be able to set the actual landed cost. So if you receive the actual landed cost, your freight invoice on the device, you'll be able to enter it or select a landed cost template. Currently, you have to do that on the desktop, so that's quite cool. And then during picking, so if you're running a pick and then there's a back order or an item you can't pick, you used to have to switch onto the desktop device, access to NetSuite to mark the pick as done or mark partial picks done. You'll now be able to do that directly on the device. So that's quite cool. And then work order picking. So if you're using NetSuite WMS and you're picking components for a work order, you used to have to wait, and there couldn't be any back orders for that work order. You had to have all the stock available before you could start picking. You can now start picking even if there's back orders for some of those components because you're waiting for them to come in. So that's really handy. And over on the bottom right, print to file option. So you on your device, previously you used print node to connect to your printers and you had to automatically send it across. There is an option for print to file. So you could bring up like the label or something you want to print on the device and then select any printer that device is linked to. So it's a bit more flexible. So, and that concludes my updates. So hopefully you got some useful information from this session to help continue maximizing your investment in NetSuite. So I appreciate I've run through this information quite quickly. I'm trying to provide pointers rather than detailed instructions. If you do need more detail on anything discussed today, Fusion 5 are obviously here to help, so get in touch. And we're not going to run through the questions because the issue is setting up this webinar, and I'll just pass over to Roshni to wrap up.
Thanks, Russell. Okay, just to wrap up, regarding of today's session will be sent out soon. We will include all the questions raised in the meeting. Otherwise, if there is anything else, please do reach out. We're happy to reply to each of the queries on individual basis as well. We will be posting this webinar on the website, and any follow-up questions, please reach out to your account managers or service delivery managers. Thank you for joining. Bye for now.